you do that? How did you do that?
Welcome back everyone to another ESO build video. Today it's going to be the update to the Off Balance Templar. This is the Magplar build for the Scalebreaker DLC. This has been used a lot in the past, one of my earlier builds, and it's been updated a hell of a lot throughout the last couple of years or so, and it's still really solid. In fact, it's a little bit stronger than it was before, especially with the changes to AoE, and of course our single target damage overall has actually gone up. So, this is a balanced build focused on applying off balance for your group at the same time as really good AoE and solid single target as well. It's a combination of things, but also we've got our own survivability mixed in there, and our sustain is nuts, but we'll get to that when we get to the sets, skills, and passives. So first of all, we're going to go into the stats. Let's pop a potion, make sure our buffs are on. We are sitting on 40.8k max Magicka, 18k max health, which is absolutely fine, especially if we get buffs in here as well. We're going to go way over 20 in a trial. We have 873 recovery for Magicka, which is actually going to go up a lot more, especially in our rotation and our gear. We'll get to those later. We've got 3.2k spell damage, but fully buffed in a trial, that actually goes up way over 5k. And we have almost 50% crit chance. With a sorcerer buff to minor prophecy, we do actually end up at 55%, which is just right. Now, we do have 14k spell resistance and 9k physical, which is a bit low because we haven't got a physical or spell resistance buff on. But inside your groups, of course, you can acquire that, or if not, we have got a skill in our arsenal that you can use. We are on 64 points into max Magicka. We don't need anything in anywhere else. And of course, we are using the Shadow Mundus Stone. As you can see, we've got 16% increase to crit damage because we are not using all divines, but we will get to that in the gear. Stage 4 Vampire all the way. You can go Stage 3 if you prefer, if you don't want the extra fire damage. But I use Vampire actively, especially in PVE when I'm running around sneaking and all that kind of stuff. So I always stay at Stage 4 Vampire myself. Never had any issues with it, but if you want to change it, you can. We will get to the passage as to why we're a vampire in a bit. We're using max health, max magic food, the flat stuff. No recovery food whatsoever. We don't actually need it, so we can get the highest amount of damage out of our flat resources as possible. But if you want to use some recovery food, then that is of course up to you. Now, I'm going to go into the skills in detail. I'm going to explain where everything comes from, what it does, what morphs you should use, and all that good stuff. If you do skip this part, of course, it's at your own risk. Just remember, I do explain a lot of different tips and tricks inside of this kind of section. So if you do miss out on those and you ask for them in the section below, I obviously won't answer them because it's already been done. So it's, again, at your own risk. But if you are interested, stick with it and I will explain everything. So, first of all, we are using Structured Entropy. No surprise there. This got somewhat altered and a little bit buffed in the Scalebreaker patch, so it's very nice to use. This will give us a damage over time effect, which is very powerful. It's magic damage as well, bear that in mind, by the way. And it lasts 12 seconds. Now, during this, of course, every 2 seconds you will actually heal, and this grants us Major Sorcery, increasing our spell damage by 20% for 24 seconds. So the dot is 12 seconds, the buff is 24 seconds. Now, this comes from the Mage's Guild skill line. It's a second ability you unlock. Starts off as Entropy, morph it to Structured Entropy. Now, this is very simple, but I've deliberately shown certain stats to show that I can actually visually see my heals even though I've got full health. It's in your options. You can just go to here into settings and into combat, and you can see down here that you've got all your healing abilities and heal over time and all that good stuff that you can show even if you are full health. This will demonstrate this particular skill. Now, as you can see, it's a single target damage over time, and I'm being healed every 2 seconds. But also, 1, it can crit, and 2, if you put it on multiple targets, if you're in trouble or you just want to dot everything, look very carefully. Each one individually heals you. It's very strong. So in certain situations where you got to fight the boss, maybe your healer's down, you got to stay alive. If you give this to each one of the ads and just keep doing what you're doing, you do have some passive heals. It's very nice indeed. So damage over time and a heal combined and Major Sorcery, saving you from needing Major Sorcery in your potion. Next up, of course, is Vampire's Bane. Now, this is in the Dawn's Wrath skill line. It's the first ability to unlock. Starts off as Sunfire, morph it to Vampire's Bane. This is a single target damage over time again. It lasts 14 seconds instead of 12, so a bit longer than the last one. Roughly the same sort of damage, but this is flame damage. And, of course, this is an initial hit. One more thing to note, by the way. When you activate this, for the duration it's lasting, you get Major Prophecy, increasing your crit rating, your spell crit rating, which is also on potions if you're using spell pots. So again, we don't need spell pots because we don't need the Major Sorcery because we've got it, and we don't need the Major Prophecy because we've got it here as well. All you need to do is activate the ability and you'll get Major Prophecy the whole time it is running. As long as you keep that up in your rotation, it will never run out and you'll have that buff with you all the time. Ignore the lightning, that's going to get interesting later. Next up is Radiant Oppression. Now this is a swap out skill in terms of its morph. Now there's two different ones. I do not favor this one personally, but yes, this one does do more damage flat out if you have lots of Magicka in your pool. Now what this does, starts off as Radiant Destruction, morph it to Radiant Oppression. This will basically put a Jesus beam on the target. It's just a beam of light and it will burn them every tick for 1.8 seconds. But under 50% health, this gets dramatically stronger. This is your basic execute, if you like. So when the target's low health, you use this. Now, the sweet spot for this is actually around a 30% mark on a boss and about 40% on an ad, depending on what damage is being done to it. So on small targets, you want to hit them about 40%. Big targets, hit them about 30%. Don't start at 50 because over your whole rotation, this will actually be a little bit less in comparison to your spammable until you hit that kind of threshold. Now, this particular morph does more damage based on the proportion of your Magicka pool currently. So, if you have 5% magic left, you're getting bugger all extra bonus. If you have 50% magic left, you're getting a bigger bonus to your damage. That is situational, which means this doesn't always come out on top. It isn't always stronger. Especially seeing as an execute, you've normally got low magic anyway. So, if you don't favor this particular morph, and you don't necessarily need the much higher damage output, what you can do is you can change this to Radiant Glory instead, which is the one I personally favor. And what that will do is instead of giving you a damage boost depending on how much magic you've got left over, this will actually heal you for 20% of every single tick of damage done. So during execute, when it's really stressful, you can actually execute the enemy without just standing there holding block and crying, and still heal for the damage you are doing. So it's very strong, especially in harder content. So you've got two choices: Radiant Glory for the heal, or Radiant Oppression if you're lucky enough to have enough magic in your pool to make you do a little bit extra damage. Choice is yours, but you need this on your bar regardless of which morph you pick. Very simple. Jesus Beam. Every tick of that goes off will do damage, and the lower the health, the better. Now here's an example for this. This target over here, we're not buffed or anything, so it's going to be a little different. This one has loads of health. You can see it's really low damage. This one has low health, and it's much higher, especially if you crit. Fully buffed, that'll go way over 100k. It's really strong. But again, 40% for ads, 30% for bosses. Next up is, of course, our main spammable, Puncture and Sweep. So first ability to unlock starts off as Puncture and Strikes, morph it to Puncturing Sweeps. That was really difficult to say. Now, this is the Magicka morph of it. It does damage in front of you for each target hit. Now, it does magic damage again. Be aware of that. That is really relevant because magic is an element type in this game. There's fire, frost, lightning, and magic. They all scale off of spell damage and maximum magicka, but some abilities or some sets only affect certain types of damage. So if you're using a set that gives you spell damage or max magicka, this will benefit. If you're using a set that only does damage to fire or to lightning or to ice, this will not be affected, nor will the Jesus Beam, and nor will Entropy. So you have to consider this is magic damage. So if you are changing sets around, you're messing with the build a little bit, and if you want to spec out for something specific, go for maximum magic, maximum spell damage, or magic damage specifically. That also is going to come up in the sets as well as an option. Anyway, the main focus of this is to stab stuff. And as you can see, it will hit one target. The front one gets hit for more than every other target that it actually hits because it hits more than one target. Ignore the lightning. This will hit lots and lots of targets. Loads and loads of them. Now, here's the trick. The front one gets hit for more, obviously, so you want to make sure you are lining this up and focusing on the boss, but this will hit AoE targets. But this will heal you based on the damage done. So 40% of all damage done will heal you. Not just the front one, but all surrounding targets, all the damage you do will heal you, and this can keep you alive very well in combat. It's really nice. So keep this as your main spammable inside your rotation at all times. Not only will you do damage, but it will heal you. Same with this, if you have Radiant Glory, during your execute, it will heal you. And for this, to keep it up, you will heal again. So as you can see, our abilities actually keep us alive as well as doing damage on multiple targets as well when you're using this. Now next up is Inner Light. This is just for the passives. Inside our Mage's Guild skill line, it's the first ability to unlock. Starts off as Mage Light, morph it to Inner Light. Now you don't have to activate this. Don't press it at all. Just leave it on your bar and you'll get 5% increase to max magicka. Also, it does give us Major Prophecy. Now we do already have that. But if we haven't fired our Vampire's Bane yet, this stays with us anyway. If we have, then this doesn't matter. we do want it for the 5% increase. We do have major skill passives as well, which makes us even stronger, but we just want it on our bar for extra maximum resource. It's really, really nice indeed. Just a skill you can just put on the bar and save any complications. Next up is, of course, our ultimate. Now, this doesn't get used unless the target is almost dead and you don't have enough for your back bar ultimate. Major skilled skill line, ultimate takes a long time to get because you need major skill 10. But once you get it, morph it to Ice Comet. This just stays on here for passives, which I will explain in a moment when we get to the passive section. But again, only use this if you don't have enough ultimate for your back bar ultimate and you're about to kill the target. This is an emergency ultimate, not a passive one that you should use all the time. Because the big hit could fail to crit and it's a waste. But anyway, next bar. We are using a Harness Magicka. This is in a light armor skill line. If I can find it. Where's it gone? There we are. You need 5 pieces of light armor to be able to use this, so make sure you have got 5 pieces of light armor equipped. But this will give you a damage shield. Basically, all you need to do is activate it, and as you can see, we've got a coated health bar. Purple aura there. Now that will absorb damage until it has taken its maximum amount, and then you'll get hit in the health. This is your protection spell. So if you're in trouble, pop on a shield. But also, while this lasts the 6-second duration, as long as it doesn't actually get consumed, the damage that you take, if it is Magicka, or spells basically, you will restore 197 Magicka for each piece of light worn. And also each piece of light armor worn increases it by 33%. And this can happen up to 3 times. So as long as your damage shield doesn't get consumed, and you do take damage of magical type in the shield, you can actually get resources back. So although it's expensive to use, and I wouldn't recommend you spam it, you can get some back for being hit. It's quite handy. This can be swapped out, of course, for inner light on your back bar. If you are in a stupidly high optimized situation and you feel like you never need a damage shield. That's extremely rare, but if you are in content where you think your rotation's good enough, you've got your heals coming in, you're healing off your own damage anyway, you can of course swap this to inner light so you've got maximum Magicka on both bars, but that is a choice for you and your group. Most people or most situations you wouldn't want to do that, but you can if you choose to. I have played this in multiple different places in content where I've needed the shield, and multiple places with the same content but a different group where I didn't need the shield. It depends on your group. Next up is Unstable Wall of Elements. Now this was changed. We used to use Elemental Blockade. You can still use it if you want, but that extension on time did make it kind of stay up for the whole rotation. However, our rotation is quite short. This used to last 6 seconds, so it was no good to us. Now it lasts 8 seconds, and our full rotation is about 9, roughly. So this falls off only for a second, yet when it does fall off, it explodes. Now, each element type will obviously do a different type of effect. Now, we are using a lightning staff, so this will actually knock concussed enemies off balance, which is the main purpose of the build. Now, lightning damage can concuss a target. It's a status effect chance. If a target is concussed, and you put Wall of Elements with a lightning staff underneath them, you will guarantee off balance. The hardest part is getting the concussion to proc. So that is why we've got lots and lots and lots of lightning. Now, for us, it's really, really easy. For others, not so much. But this wall has to be down all the time. And instead of the last Wall of Elements that we used to use, which was a longer extension and a longer duration, this one now does more damage over time. It's got a shorter duration than the last one, but it does explode at the end. Also, just consider, if you have your Wall of Elements running and you accidentally recast it, don't worry. Not only will you recast the duration, but you will make the explosion happen early. So we have Wall of Elements down there. He's off balance already. That was easy. Now it's going to run out, but I'll just reapply it. You can see above their head is an extra bit of damage. The orange one is the dot. The one above their head, the white and the yellow, that is the explosion. Very, very nice indeed. Little tip there, but it's quite handy. Essentially, all you need to do is apply a concussion effect. Now, there's 2 very simple ways to do that. One is lots and lots of lightning damage, which is what we're built for. Another one, to guarantee it, is if you have somebody in your group using live wire and they get attacked, they have a 25% chance to concuss in area of effect. That concussion's guaranteed as long as that proc happens, and it most likely will. You see that, you Wall of Elements, guaranteed, job done. Failing that, you need someone like this, or the Easy Sork, which can put out so much lightning damage it's going to happen no matter what anyway. So we can actually have a very, very high uptime. In testing so far, I can have almost a 97% uptime just myself alone. It's disgusting. Now, just to recap, of course, this is in the Destruction Staff skill line. It's a second ability to unlock. Starts off as Wall of Elements, morph it to Unstable Wall of Elements, not Elemental Blockade. Elemental Blockade is nice. It does stay up for the full duration of your rotation, but it does do a lot less damage, and it underperformed. This was really, really nice for both overall damage output, concussion effects, off-balance effects, and of course the burst at the end was really nice for extra AoE as well, which is what we are built for since we're using Lightning and Staves. Again, when we get to the passives, stuff will start to make sense. Next up is Solar Barrage. This is in our Dawn's Wrath skill line. This is a second ability to unlock. Starts off as Solar Flare, morph it to Solar Barrage. And this is very simple. Magic damage as well in area of effect every 2 seconds, as you can see. But while that's active, all of our light attacks are empowered with an increased 40% damage. Keep this up 100% of the time. This must stay with you. We will be light attacking through our rotation between every single skill, and light attacks, if you are familiar with DPS and how it kind of applies itself, is an essential part to every single rotation. Light attacks are normally way up there on the chart of higher damage output versus your skills and sets. It's really, really important to buff them, so we have got this. Keep that on at all times. Next up is Barb Trap. Now, this was changed somewhat in this particular update because it used to last for 6 seconds and reapply for another 6 seconds, whereas now it lasts 18. It's in the Fighters Guild skill line. Starts off as Beast Trap, morph it to Barbed Trap. It's no longer called Rearming Trap. This does physical damage over time for 18 seconds on the target, but the main thing we want this for is that over time, for the whole duration, we will receive an increased 10% critical damage. So if we do crit, we will do extra damage. This is very, very important. It does immobilize targets as well, although that's not what we're really using it for. Now, again, this does do physical damage, but when I get to the passives, you'll understand how this does actually contribute to our overall DPS. It can actually do about 1 to 1.5k DPS overall in a full rotation, just giving us a buff. And it's not even the buff that's doing it. The buff pushes everything else. This is really, really nice. We do have weapon damage bonuses and such as a Templar, so it's not completely useless. Next up is Blazing Spear. This is very, very important, not just for you, but for everybody else as well. This is in the Adric Spear skill line. It's a 4th ability to unlock. Starts off as Spear Shards, morph it to Blazing Spear. Again, more magic damage. It is a damage over time on the ground. It lasts for 8 seconds, and everything caught inside of this will take damage every 1 second. But at the same time, this will also make a synergy available for people in your group. So if anybody takes this, they will restore 3960 Magicka or stamina, whichever one is highest. Now, basically, we are deliberately in a melee position. So any staminas around us are going to be able to reach this. Any melees around us, whether they're Magicka or stamina, are going to be able to reach this. And your tank is going to be around here somewhere. Can't miss. Resources for days. It's in your rotation every single 9 seconds or so. So someone is going to pick this up and they're going to be on cooldown, and someone else can pick up the next one, and so on and so forth. This actually does help your group sustain alongside any healers that may be throwing out a bubble or so. Next up, of course, is our ultimate, Thunderous Rage. This is in a Destruction Staff skill line. It's level 50 to unlock this, but once you've got it, get Elemental Storm, morph it to Elemental Rage. Of course, just like Wall of Elements, this changes depending on your staff. So if you use a lightning staff, it'll be lightning damage. If you use a flame staff, it'll be flame damage. This version of it, the flame version has higher damage output. The lightning version has a longer duration, but also consider that lightning damage does have the ability to concuss the enemy. So while using this particular version, you can concuss the enemy, you can then force them to go off balance. It will contribute towards our overall design for the build. Now, also, caps were altered for AoE. Any abilities that apply a debuff or any sets that do damage within reason, that return resources or do debuffs, are capped to 6. But anything that does flat damage or applies a debuff in a skill that isn't to do with penetration or Magicka drain can actually hit more targets. So if you have something that does flat damage, you'll hit more than 6. If you have something that hits and applies minor maim or minor vulnerability or anything like that, and it's AoE designed, that will also hit more than 6. It's if they count on top of each other. There's lots of different variations of skills and such that can come into certain categories, but for the most part, let's just say AoE was uncapped now. And here's an example. Every single one of them is getting zapped. So that is why you want to use that. And you can see here the spear as well will hit all the targets, as will the Wall of Elements. as will our puncture and sweeps. As long as you haven't got a skill or an ability or a proc from a set that has a resource gain or drain or a penetration or resist debuff, it will hit more than 6 targets. There's a couple that don't quite fit into that category, but for us, pretty much everything's there. Now, our skills are pretty much done, but we are now going to go into the passives, and this is the really important stuff. This is how you understand how this all works. So, Adric's Spear, first of all, this increases our critical damage by 10%. Flat out, we have a built-in Beast Trap, but Beast Trap stacks. So we have a really high output towards our critical damage. We want to make sure we can crit as much as possible. And since we're doing a crap ton of AoE, the more targets we have, the more likely we are to crit, the more damage we'll do. This also increases your damage done to blocking targets. So if you're up against something that's blocking, whether it's PVE or PvP, you will go through that shield a little bit. This grants you minor protection for 6 seconds and reduces the damage taken by 8%. Now, what does that mean? We have to use an ability from this skill line to proc it. So, minor protection. It used to be for 3 seconds. Now it's for 6. We use this twice every rotation. Reapplies it. We swap to the back bar. We use our spear. We do shinies. We do stuff. We go back to the front. It's still with us. And we're back to our front stabbies again. We have 100% uptime on minor protection. We don't need circular protection. We don't need sets that give it. We don't need skills that give it. It is built in. That is absolutely mental. As long as you are casting a Adric's Spear ability once every 6 seconds, you will keep that with you. Really, really strong. When you deal damage with an Adric's Spear ability, you have a 25% chance to deal an additional 1.7k physical damage or 5.3k magic damage. And this can happen once every 0.5 seconds. This is called Burning Light, of course, as you can see. If you're using combat metrics, that's what you want to look for. But this, every half a second, can cause it to happen. And at the same time, this, every half a second, can cause it to happen. So, if 1 second that procs, and then half a second later, this 1 second procs one, you can have one every half a second with the 2 skills overlapping each other if you're lucky, and that can be a massive overall damage boost for you. Yes, it's chance based, but the chance base is so high, especially since we're overlapping skills. Also consider when you're looking at your DPS output as an overall kind of what did you do on ESO logs or on combat metrics, this can actually contribute to an overall about 7 or 8% of your full DPS amount. It's really, really powerful. So you have to pay attention to that passive, make sure you get it as soon as possible, and make sure you keep those abilities running. This increases our weapon damage by 6% and our spell resistance by 2640. Now, of course, our spell resistance is up because of this, but so is our weapon damage. We're not using weapon abilities as such. We're not using physical damage. We're not using physical weapons or anything like that. We're all magic and spell. But the Beast Trap does actually do physical damage. So this minor bonus here will actually give us higher weapon damage, which means this does actually hit a little bit higher than it would on any other Magicka build. So that will contribute for a tiny amount of increase to damage. It's quite nice. But get that passive anyway for the resistances overall. This here increases the duration of your Sunfire, Eclipse, and Solar Flare abilities and Nova abilities by 2 seconds. Now, Sunfire is your Vampire's Bane. Solar Flare, which is also part of this, has another 2 seconds on it as well. So instead of lasting 6 seconds, it lasts 8. And of course, our Nova, if you do ever choose to use a Nova, if you haven't got Mage's Guild, for example, or you need to put on a Mitigation Ultimate instead of your Meteor, then of course that has a longer duration too. Next up is, very important actually, we get 3 Ultimate for casting a Dawn's Wrath ability once every 6 seconds. This here is a Dawn's Wrath ability, we're going to use it on our back bar every rotation. This is a Dawn's Wrath ability, we're going to use it every rotation as well. And so is this when we get to our Execute. We are guaranteed, or almost guaranteed, in fact we are, every 6 seconds to be able to utilize that bonus. It's really, really handy. If they overlap a little bit, we may miss one by a couple of seconds, but we are going to get constant ulti regen, so we can use our ultimate more often than most. It's very, very nice. This, when casting a Dawn's Wrath ability, grants you and your group minor sorcery for 20 seconds, increasing your spell damage by 10%. Not only is that a really good bonus for 20 seconds, but we're using Dawn's Wrath abilities every rotation on both bars, so we can keep that up 100% of the time. We are bringing spell damage to the group and buffing the other people. This reduces the health, magicka, and stamina and ultimate costs of all of your abilities by 5%. That is actually quite substantial. So you want to make sure you get this as soon as possible. All of our costs are down. Ultimates are cheaper, skills are cheaper, the lot. Now this skill line here we're not actually using. if you wish to slot Channeled Focus to give yourself a resistance buff, you can do, and this will make you incredibly tanky, but you'll have to sacrifice a skill to do so. A good example of this is when you can do it is if someone is guarding you, perhaps a tank is giving you guard to give you minor force, or you have minor force from a healer if they're using Twilight set. That means you won't need the Beast Trap. That means you can slot this. It will give you stupid recovery that we don't need, but it will give you a resistance buff. And this will mean that we actually end up with 22,000 and 17.5k resists, which is crazy. Reason we have that is because this particular version of the skill actually enhances Major Ward and Major Resolve while standing inside of the circle. It enhances it by a further 50%. It's the only skill in the game that buffs a major buff like this. In that respect, it's absolutely mental. So it's not part of the build, but if you do choose to use it, you can of course slot that depending on the situation if your minor force is already covered. But due to which, if we do have this, you may want one of these passives. So this one increases the healing effects from your Restore and Light abilities by up to 12% based on the severity of the target's wounds. We're not using any of these for that, so don't worry. This one here, while standing in your Cleansing Ritual, Rune Focus, or Rite of Passive, this counts as Rune Focus. That's the original morph of it. This is when this kicks in. For 4 seconds after leaving it, you will still keep Minor Mending that you had to start with for standing in it. But if you stay in it, you keep it. So your healing done, which obviously contributes to these abilities here, will be enhanced if you stand inside your Rune Focus, and it will stay with you if you leave for 4 seconds. So you can have that passive if you want. If you're not using this skill, you don't need it. So these two so far, you don't have to buy if you're not using this. This one here is useless. We're not using any of those abilities. And this one here increases your resurrection speed. We will take this. So technically you could drop these 3 and just get this if you're not using the other skill. But you res 20% faster than everybody else. Resurrected allies return with 100% more health than they usually do. And if you've got an empty soul gem, although you use a soul gem to pick someone up, you can fill one at the same time. So basically the res was free. So if someone's dead, you are the fastest reser on the field, get them up. Now, the Destruction Staff passives are very, very simple. These are all required. You need to make sure you've got every single one of them. This is incredibly important. We are using a Lightning Staff, which means your shock heavy attacks damage nearby enemies for 100% of the damage done. Why is that important? Light attacks hit 1 target, as you can see. Just 1. We'll put it near loads of people, loads of enemies as well. There's 20 skeletons there. Just 1 target. Heavy attack splashes the targets nearby. As you can see, our AoE is absolutely nuts. Now that's a very low heavy attack because we're not buffed and we're not utilizing our bonuses and such that we have in our sets, but I will demonstrate that in a moment once we get to the gear and show you the potential of it. Now, also, we're not using a flame staff on purpose because we want to take advantage of that heavy attack splash damage. We will be using it inside of our rotation and we will use it in big ad pulls. So we are deliberately using a lightning staff. The flame staff has a stronger heavy attack straight up, but it could crit or not crit, whereas basically the lightning staff can crit or not crit every tick and splash damage everything. It has a lot higher damage output, especially in ad pulls. Your Destruction Staff abilities ignore 10% of the enemy's spell resistance. When buffs and debuffs are down, this is really going to count. Our penetration bonuses, our sets, our traits, and our passives, and our CPs are all set up to consider every single buff being applied. But if there's gaps, this will help. And also, if you're doing splash damage, this will help you do more damage in area of effect because surrounding targets of a main boss will not be debuffed as effectively as the main target because there's a few abilities that are single target only, especially a crusher and stuff like that. So you will actually overpen a little bit and do more damage to those surrounding targets versus what you would if you didn't have it. This increases your chance to apply burning, concussion, and chilled status effects. Very simple. We are using lightning staves. We want concussion. If you get this passive, your chance to proc it is heightened. That means we can guarantee off balance if concussion happens here. By the way, concussion, for those of you that don't know, while it's active, is minor vulnerability. That increases the damage that everybody does to that target by 8%. It's exactly the same as Infallible Ether. There's a few other ways to get it as well. But concussion, the higher the chance to proc it, the more of an uptime you have to every single target on minor vulnerability. It's really important to know that. This is very important. No, we're not using a flame staff on the front bar. We're not using one on the back bar either, but you can if you want. We'll get to that in a bit. But flame staves increase your damage done with single target abilities only. We're using loads of AoE. So the lightning staff increases all of our area of effect by 8%. Now, this is single target, yes, but we only use it during execute, so it's not that much of a problem. This is single target, and so is this. So we've got a couple of single target skills. But this, our main spammable, is area of effect. This is area of effect. This is also area of effect. This is also area of effect. Our ultimate is area of effect. You see where we're going with this? We have loads and loads of area of effect. Plus, not to mention, this heavy attack is area of effect. 8% damage to everything I'm hitting. And spammables. It's really, really mental. So the lightning stuff actually topped out. It's really, really solid for this particular setup. It's done on purpose to give as much area of effect as we possibly can while having really good single target. Now, just consider, of course, if you do change your back bar weapon to a flame staff, your wall of elements will do more damage because the flame variant of it is stronger, as is the ultimate. But you will lose the ability to apply concussion with your wall of elements, and you will lose the ability to knock things off balance with your wall of elements. So only ever do that if your group already has your job covered. This is your job for this build. This is why you have it. This is the purpose of it. It's not there because I'm an idiot. It's there because we are supposed to help the group have as much off balance as possible. We are a utility build. We have high damage. We have good sustain and survivability. We have massive AoE, and we can bring buffs to the table. Now, the final one here is if you kill something with a Destroy Staff ability, including your lights and heavy attacks, or your Wall of Elements, you will actually gain back 3,600 Magicka, which is nuts. We have very high sustain. I'm not going to spoil too much, but when we get to the sets, you're going to see how this is absolutely insane. Especially in AoE pulls. You can't run out of Magicka. Now, light armor, of course. We want every single one of these. We're using 5 pieces of light. This will reduce effectiveness of snares per piece worn and reduce the cost of sprint. This will increase your mag recovery and reduction to cost. This will increase our spell resistance. So as you can see, obviously our spell resistance is higher than our physical because of this passive and of course because of our class passives. This will increase your crit rating by 10%. I know it says 2191, but it's 10%. And this will increase your spell penetration. So we actually do more damage to enemies flat out because we're going through their resists. Now, medium armor. You want 2 of these. You want Windwalker, so we have a reduction to stamina cost for abilities and increased recovery. We are using 1 piece of medium and we are using 1 stamina ability. So we do want to get that little tiny bonus there that will help us. And of course, this increases our movement speed and reduction to cost for dodge roll. We will dodge roll. We do want to get this passive. All the rest are useless because this is actually for 5 pieces only. This improved sneak one you can use in some content, I guess. I mean, if you're using March of Sacrifices as kind of a achievement run and you want to get that done and you are struggling with sneaking, Vampire plus this plus Legend Domain as well as passives can help, but it's not essential. But these ones here, the weapon crit and all the rest of it, you don't actually need. You can take advantage of the weapon crit one if you really want to. It's a tiny, tiny bonus, and it will mean that this can crit more often, but it won't be massive. So if you don't have the skill points, don't bother wasting it. Just get Windwalker and Athletics. Next up is Heavy, of course. You want the first 3. Resolve, Constitution, and Juggernaut. Get all of these. This increases your physical resistance for the 1 piece we have worn. This gives us Constitution, which means for being hit, we will actually get 108 magic and stamina back once every 4 seconds. Sounds small, but it does add up. And this here increases our max health by 2% for the 1 piece we have worn as well. You don't need these 2. They are for 5 pieces only. Next up, of course, is Vampire. We are a Vampire. We're a stage 4, but you can be stage 2 or higher, or 3, it's up to you. But for 2 or higher, you'll get stam recovery and mag recovery. And for 3 or higher, if you go below 50% health, you get tankier. You take up to 33% less damage based on your health that is missing at the time, so you survive more when you go low health. It's very, very nice indeed, especially since we heal off of our damage. So you don't have to panic so much, you don't take so many one-shots. This is very, very nice indeed. Just watch out and don't stand in fire because you do take more damage from it. We are using Beast Trap, so we do want to use Intimidating Presence to get the cost down. We do want to increase the weapon damage while it's on our bar, because we've got a 6% as a class. We've got 3% here for this being on the bar on the back one. It's not a massive bonus, no, but again, this Beast Trap does actually give us a little bit of extra damage on top of other magical classes, so it's quite handy that we've got a flat weapon damage bonus just for that. It's tiny, but if you want to go for the little tiny bonuses that you could benefit from, go for this. But above all, this is what you really want. You generate 9 ultimate when you kill Undead, Daedra, or Werewolf. We are going to kill loads of stuff, especially in AoE situations. Sure, we may have a passive rotation for single target, but when there's stuff like that over there, we're going to put down our dots. We are going to hit our puncture and sweeps or fire off a heavy attack and nuke everything in area of effect. That is going to contribute to quite a lot, and we are going to kill most things ourselves while other people try to get them down. We are going to get a lot of kills. We are going to get a lot of ulti back. We can use our ultimate more often. Definitely get that. Next up is Mage's Guild, of course. You do want some specifics here. You want to get this one here, which will reduce the cost of Mage's Guild abilities. We are actually using one. We are using Structured Entropy, so you do want to get the cost down if you can. You also want this to increase the duration of them, so that this lasts longer. It lasts 12 seconds instead of 10. You also need to get this. This increases a Magicka amount that you have and your recovery by 2% for each skill slotted. We have one here, and one here, and this is why this is here for passives. We actually have a 6% increase max Magicka bonus on our front bar. Back bar, we have nothing unless you slot in a light and remove the shield, which is risky, but you can if you want. But the front bar, we get a nice big bonus to our overall pool, which increases our damage output, of course. And of course, you want this. If you cast a Mage's Guild ability, you will grant your next light attack within 5 seconds with Empower, increasing its damage by 40%. Now, of course, we have this running all the time with Solar Barrage. They don't stack. But for argument's sake, we're about to approach combat. We haven't got our buffs on yet, and we hit the target with this first. Next thing you should do is a light attack and swap, or a light attack and a skill. That one light attack will be boosted. It will actually help. It's a couple of skill points. It's really rare that you'll actually utilize it, but sometimes you will, so make sure you get it. We don't need Psijic Order or Thieves Guild. We do need Undaunted, of course. You need this. You will be taking synergies. You're up in the face of the boss. Every synergy you see, take it. You'll get resources back for doing so. That is excluding what they actually do themselves. Every single synergy is beneficial to you. It'll give you a damage shield. It'll heal you. It'll give you a bonus to buffs and all that kind of stuff. Resource gain or even damage output. Make sure you take every single synergy you see. And as for the tanks crying, oh my god, you took my spear. We're throwing spears. Take this one. Stop whining. Now, Undaunted Metal is very important, of course. We are using 3 different types of armor. 1 heavy, 1 medium, 5 light. So for each different type we wear, we get 6% across the board. 2% for each one. 6% to max health, 6% to Magicka, 6% to stamina. That's why our resources are as high as they are, instead of being an ultra squishy. You won't need any of these. High elf, of course we're high elf. You can be any race you want. There's no restrictions on it. But this one was chosen for optimization purposes. We do have a really nice bonus here. If we use a class ability, which we will, and our rotation is based on using class abilities due to our sets. If you use a class ability, you'll actually gain back 640 of your lowest resource. So for us, our lowest resource is stamina. So we use a beast trap. Whoops, wrong button. We use a beast trap. We get resources back. So that is basically free for us. By the time we've cast it and come back to the next rotation, we've got our stamina back and can reuse it. It's never a problem for us. It's a really nice passive. It's not every single cast, by the way. It is limited to every 6 seconds, but our rotation is 9 seconds plus anyway, so it's fine. This increases our max magic by 2k, and this increases our spell damage by 258. This is all flat stuff. It's very, very nice, but like I said, you can be any race you want. It's entirely up to you. Other stuff was tested, of course, but this one came out flat on top. But for yourselves, if you prefer something else, be my guest, go for it. Finally, the most important passive in the game, in my opinion, again, we are using crafted potions. They do last around 36, 37 seconds. If you have this passive, they last 47 seconds, which means they beat their cooldown of 45. So you can have your potions up 100% of the time. Now, potions are incredibly important. Of course, spell pots are so expensive, aren't they? Really expensive. These sods over here, which give us spell damage, which we don't need because we've got entropy. They give us Major Prophecy, which we don't need because we've got Vampire's Bane and Mage Light. And they give us Major Intellect and Magic back. We do need that. What do? Do we use spell pots? No. We use tripods. Sorcery's covered. We don't need this. Prophecy's covered. We don't need this. This one will give us Magicka, Major Intellect, which we do need. And for the bonus as well of having a completely different pot, we actually get health back, so we've got a heal in our potions. We get stamina back, we've got stamina in our potions for blocks, dodge rolls, all that good stuff. And we've got health and stam recovery as well. We actually can utilize tripods on a DPS and sacrifice nothing. And they're a lot cheaper to make than this. Now, we're going to go into the gear, and hopefully this will start making a lot more sense. Because we are using, of course, Sororia. Now, this is not set in stone. You don't have to have perfected. You can get the basic one and go to the normal trial, host it yourself, or jump in a pickup. They're really quick to get through, and you can utilize this. Now, this is a tricky set and may need a little bit of advanced kind of experience or maybe a bit of practice to get used to it. But what this does is when you fire off a light attack or do direct damage, you get this nice circle on the ground. As long as you stay in it, you'll keep getting stacks of damage and keep doing direct damage to reapply it. If you get out of it, it's on a cooldown, and it will run out and you'll lose it. You have to keep direct damage up. Now, That can stack up to 20, and each one will give you 30 spell damage, all the way up to 20, and it will stay there if you max it as long as you don't leave it for too long. That is very, very strong, and we get a massive spell damage bonus for it. Also, alongside the set itself, it has spell damage, minus Slayer, increasing all of our damage by 5%, and 2 max magic bonuses. 1 bonus if it's not perfected. It's not a big deal. Now, this also carries over. So if I hit him with direct damage and swap bars, I still keep it. So we only need it on the front bar. It will still boost and stay with us and all the rest of it as long as you stay on it, as long as you're doing damage. Now, what you can do instead, if you don't have access to this, or you don't really want to go farming it, you can actually use War Maidens. Now, War Maidens will give you a crit bonus, which Sororia does not, which is nice. It will give you a max magic bonus and spell damage bonus, which the other does. It won't give you the minor Aegis, so you will be missing that, but you will gain 400 spell damage to all of your magic abilities. Now, this will only be on the front bar, so you don't want to stay on your back bar for too long, but here's an example as to why that is important. This is magic damage, so is our Jesus Beam, so are our main stabs, so is our Blazing Spear and our Burning Light passive, so is our Solar Barrage. Now, the only things that aren't affected by this is the Unstable Wall of Elements and the Death Royalty, and of course, we've forgotten this one, Vampire's Bane. So you will dip on those and gain on the others. So that's something that you can actually use. The damage output is very, very close, but this is the bonus to it. Now, if you use Sororia, you may lose your procs and it may be difficult. If you use War Maidens, that spell damage to your magic abilities is always going to be with you on the front bar. You'll never lose it, even inside mechanics. So the choice is yours. That's just a very simple version of the setup, and it still performs very, very well. You'll lose about 3 to 4k DPS overall top end. So you've got War Maiden or Sororia. It's entirely up to you. Your choice. You can use crafted sets if you prefer in the time being, maybe Julianus or something like that. Entirely up to you, but those two topped out, aside everything else anyway. Now, on the back bar, of course, weapon and spell damage glyph on the front bar with Precise as a trait. Back bar is a Maelstrom Lightning Staff. If you don't have this, of course, you can put on a Willpower Staff, or you can just double War Maidens if you like, if you're using War Maidens in the first place. That way you'll have the bonus on both bars. Or Sororia, I wouldn't double bar this because you can swap with it, so you're wasting a potential slot. So Willpower or just double bar whatever 5-piece set you're using that isn't Sororia. This is very important. Shock Glyph, infused, and pay attention to your Wall of Elements. While your Wall of Elements is down, any target in here will take increased light and heavy attack damage. Why is that important? Here's a non-buffed heavy attack. Dude in the middle's getting hit for 3.9k maximum. Now let's try that with Wall of Elements down. Getting hit for 7.2. Much, much higher. Almost double. Now, when you've got your buffs and bonuses applied and the target is off balance, that goes up way in excess of over 20k, which means your splash damage is massive. So, you do want to get the Maelstrom weapon as soon as possible if you can, but don't panic if you haven't got it yet. Yes, you will lose potential overall damage if you don't have it, but you got to start somewhere. So, this is what you want to aim for. Now, again, if you are in a situation where somebody else is already covering all the off balance for you and you definitely don't need to apply any for them, you can, of course, change this to a Flame Staff with a Flame Glyph. You will get slightly more damage output, but you will lose the ability to buffer off balance. So just consider that before you decide to swap for a target dummy kill. Yes, it will show you more damage because the target dummy is already off balance anyway. It's already got minor vulnerability on it. It's already got all that shiny stuff. But if you're the one bringing the buffs, Lightning Staff. If someone else is already doing it, Flame Staff. Front bar must always be Lightning, though. That did top out no matter what. Now, the monster set we're using, there's two choices here. You can use Grofdar, which is really, really nice, especially close quarter AoE. It does area of effect damage every 5 seconds in a form of like a lava pool, if you like, and this procs all the time. Our AoE is boosted by our Lightning Staff, so this is increased by 8% for us, and it's really, really handy and easy to get. Failing that, if you want to go more single target, you can, of course, go Zaan, which is really, really strong. It has a crit bonus, and, of course, it does a flame beam at the target, and every second that it's active, it gets stronger and stronger and stronger. It has a 5-second uptime and an 18-second downtime, so there's a 13-second gap, whereas this one has a 5-second gap. Top end, both of these actually got very, very, very similar, if not the same numbers on single target, so most of the time, you may want to go with Grofdar, especially since you're doing a lot of area of effect. But again, the choice is yours. The Grofdar one's a lot easier to get. Now, finally, the main set. Oh, Sorority, by the way, is weapon and jewelry, or you can go weapon and body. It doesn't make a difference. Overwhelming is back. This was on the build originally, and we swapped it for Aurorans, which is still very, very nice. But this got altered drastically, and it is absolutely disgusting. This gives us a max magic bonus, a spell damage bonus, a spell damage bonus again, and instead of casting a class ability and having a chance, a thin chance, to apply a single target, 12-meter range, every 1 second zap, this doesn't require you to cast a skill from your skill line. This requires you to do damage from a skill from your skill line. Yes, that also means dots. So if you have a dot on the ground and you're doing spammables and stand still, this can still fire it. Also note, this no longer hits one target. This hits multiple. This can hit up to 6 targets. And every single 1 second that it does shock damage, which again can enhance our chance to hit with concussion for more off balance, every single hit, 15% of the damage dealt will be restored to you in magic. And this can apply every 6 seconds, so you can technically have 100% uptime on it, if you're lucky. This is disgusting. And this is why, when we're in AoE situations, and we are putting down all of our shinies, watch my Magicka not run out. I can't run out. It's impossible for me to run out of Magicka. So AoE situations, you know, the thing that we're built for, this particular build is supposed to be good at. Get stuck in and flatten stuff. Absolutely mental. Now, while we're on that, oh, you can see the zaps, look. Is it still firing? There you go. Zap, zap, zap. Every single one that gets hit, 6 targets maximum, randomly obviously which ones, will give you magic back. One more thing, by the way, if you are going full out AoE, you will want to swap this skill out. Vampire's Bane, swap it for Soul Splitting Trap in the Soul Magic skill line. This one is a single target one and gives you resources back if a target dies. The other one hits unlimited amount of targets and does a feck ton of damage. So you may want to swap that out. That's up to you though. Now, trait-wise, we are going to be using Precise on the main weapon, Infused on the back, Infused on the head, chest, and legs, and we want Divines on everything else. And of course, Bloodthirsty once with 2 infused. I did try 3 Bloodthirsty. Yes, the Jesus Beam looked great, but the overall damage output was actually less. So, single target, Bloodthirsty, and 2 infused. However, you might want to get yourself a couple of extra rings, because if you are going purely for AoE, and maybe you've swapped one of your skills in a spam and pulsar or something like that, you're just going for ads only, you may want to swap these out for a couple of Bloodthirsty for that, so you can kill the area of effect enemies quicker. Choice is yours, however. You're not going to run out of Magicka anyway, so you can still hit stuff all day long. Now, on single target, you still have really high Magicka regen because of that ability. Every 1 second you're getting magic back, it's nuts. Which means our old rotation of having to heavy attack every second rotation is not necessary as such. Now, with that in mind, we're going to go into the champion points, and then I'm going to show you the rotation. So, same red stuff as before. 72 into Ironclad to increase our reduction to direct damage. 64 and 64 for everything else, so 13% reduction across the board, and of course Thick Skin giving us a 19% reduction to damage over time. Some content you may want to change these out, just bear in mind of course it's going to cost you 3k gold to do so, but this is a flat setup that I use for pretty much everything, unless of course it requires me to change them. Now we do have Unchained, which means if we have to break free, and we will have a cheaper stamina ability cost. So the next stam ability we use will be 80% cheaper. So your Beast Trap is cheaper. It's the only thing we've got. But just bear in mind, of course, our stam return is so high because we can use tripods, and we're never basically going to run out anyway, and breaking free and dodge rolling is not a problem. 90 points into healing received. So any heals that we do, including from our abilities, or any heals that we receive from other people is enhanced. And we have Field Physician. We're the fastest reser on the field. Res people quickly. And of course, for doing so, you will take less damage while you're doing it. 44 points into Warlord to reduce the cost of break free. 75 points in Tenacity to give us back more resources when we heavy attack, like we need it. And increase your recovery, again, like we need it. 72 points into Tumbling. This, of course, is to reduce the cost of dodge roll. And 4 points into Shadow Ward because we haven't got anywhere else to put them. So we'll take a tiny percentage towards something beneficial. And then eventually, of course, we've opened up the Treasure Hunter passive, which gives us more higher quality loot from chests than we would normally get. 61 points into Elfborn to give us a 21% increase to critical damage, which is nuts. 64 points into Elemental Expert, increasing all of our damage, magic, lightning, flame, whatever we're doing, by 13%. 9 points into Spell Erosion, so we just about hit on the nose for penetration values as far as debuffs and buffs are concerned inside your trials and dungeon situations. 18 points into Staff Expert to increase our light and heavy attack damage by 11%, and 37 points into Master at Arms to increase all of our direct damage, including light attacks, by 15%. They stack up, by the way. 81 points in Thaumaturge because we are doing a crap ton of dots. And of course, since we've got 75 points in this tree, this will enhance our damage output because anything that goes off balance, whether it's done by somebody else or us, we will gain 10% extra damage during that time. Just bear in mind, by the way, off balance now lasts 7 seconds, not 5, which is really, really handy. Now, rotation. This is going to be really, really simple. When you get in a fight, you want your beast trap down. Really simple stuff. Then you want to put down your back bar dots. So you want to put down your spears, light attack, solar barrage, light attack, wall of elements, swap bars. Then, very simply, you want to light attack, entropy. Light attack stabs twice. Light attack, vampire's bane, swap bars. Back bar is the same every single time. It is spear, light, solar barrage, light, wall, swap. But every second rotation, to close the gap on your rotation, every second rotation, since this lasts 18 seconds, every second you need to put this down, your beast trap, while you're on the back. Now what you want to do really is to do it after solar barrage, because solar barrage will refresh and your light attack beast trap, your light attack will be buffed. Whatever order you do it in, it isn't really that important, but if you do want to go for that tiny, tiny damage increase, make sure you solar barrage first, beast trap second. Now, if you do use Beast Trap every single rotation, it's not the end of the world. You will have 100% uptime on it. But if you're very, very good with your rotation, you can also have 100% uptime using it every second rotation. But you have to be extremely clean. So, if you are worried about it, do it every rotation. You'll just use a little bit of damage overall because you'll have too much time on your back bar every second rotation. And your overall output will be down like a K or so. It's not the end of the world. So, spear, barrage, wall, swap. Second rotation, spear, barrage, Beast Trap, wall, swap. Every single time. Make sure you light attack between every skill. Finally, on the front bar, if the target is off balance and if you need some magic back, instead of 2 puncture and sweeps, replace one of them with a heavy attack while the target is off balance. Now what you're looking for is this. Look above his head. See that blue debuff? Looks like someone's head with the stars spinning around it. That's off balance. When you see that, heavy attack once on your front bar, you'll get a crap ton of resources back. You will never run out of Magicka. It's absolutely insane. You don't have to do it every single time, but do it during that phase because then you'll do a 70% increase to your heavy attack, so your damage will stay up and you'll get double resources. Now, I'm going to show you a quick dummy pass. I'm going to show you under the condition that we have already got off balance. Someone else is already doing it because they are. The dummy's already buffed with it. So, as explained in the gear and the skills, we're going to use a flame staff on the back, but we're still going to use a lightning staff on the front. As you can see, my food is max health, max stamina. Even that demonstration of the AoE stuff a minute ago, I've got no recovery food whatsoever. We'll even do it again, actually. We'll jump in here and just do loads and loads of damage without running out. No recovery food required. Brilliant. So the demonstration is going to be showing that as well. I don't need to use the cheesy food because the cheesy food shows you maximum Magicka, which we already have because it's exactly the same as this food. But it also shows you recovery, which we don't need. So we are actually using on the dummy the same food as we use in combat. Here we go. So, hopefully that helped. Just to note, by the way, when it comes to the rotation at execute, you've got two choices. You can either stick to your whole rotation and do 2 Jesus beams instead of 2 stabs, or you can basically just keep these 2 dots down, spear, wall, and then just Jesus beam 3 times to kill it. That was supposed to be a beam, not spears. That's a beam. So it's up to you. Again, 2 Jesus beams instead of 2 stabs, or 3 Jesus beams and just these 2 dots. But keep your beast trap up for the extra crit bonus. You'll be able to figure that one out yourself more when you're actually in combat. It's a lot easier to figure out once you're actually there. But just be aware, under 30% is when you want to do your execute. So hopefully that helped. Hopefully it wasn't too boring, and hopefully you now have a better understanding of how to approach this particular build, including its overall design. So, first of all, thank you all very much for watching. I hugely appreciate the support. And if you are not subscribing on YouTube, please do hit that button. It is free. Furthermore, if you want to help support outside of the channel, there are some links in the info section for Patreon, Twitter, the website xynodegaming.com, and of course, I also live stream on Twitch every single night from 10 PM UK time onwards, unless I say otherwise on Twitter. Once again, thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.